This is the second video on our Valentine's Day crafts, and it's a simple hoop part with a little embroidery and felt applique. Now let's get into the materials and tools first. I'm using a 4-inch embroidery hoop and we'll also need a fabric of your choice. I have selected denim fabric here. We'll need a little bit of felt fabric in your color of selection, some embroidery floss, a fabric marking pen, a hand needle, a ruler, twine, ribbon or jute cord if you are planning to hang the hoop part, pair of scissors. Finally, to make our pattern pieces, I'm using a quarter and you can select any circular shape of that size. Finally, a piece of paper or board to draw the patterns. First thing first, I'm going to hoop the fabric to the embroidery hoop. Place the fabric on top of the smaller hoop and then place the bigger hoop on top of it to fit them with each other. Now pull the fabric around the hoop to make it tightly fitted to the hoop. But don't pull it too tight, otherwise the threads of the fabric might also start to stretch as well. Tighten the screw at the top and think of this as making a fabric drum. Once everything is nice and fit, cut the fabric around the hoop, leaving about 1 to 1.5 inch fabric area like this. With that done, embroidery hoop is ready to work. Now it's time to make our pattern pieces. Using your ruler and pencil, draw approximately 1 by 1 inch square on a piece of paper or a board. This size works for the embroidery hoop I have selected. If you are using a bigger embroidery hoop, change the measurements according to that. Start to cut around the drawn pattern, and this is one of the 2 patterns we use. This quarter works as my next pattern piece. Now this is a quarter US dollar. I'm sure you can all use any coin from the country you live in or use any circular shape to make the pattern. Place the coin on top of the felt fabric of your choice and draw around it using a fabric marking pen. Now carefully cut around the drawn circular pattern. You can also just hold the coin to the fabric and simply cut around it. Fold the circle in half to make it to 2 semicircles like this. Now from one of the folded edges, make a small curved cut like this. Then move to the other folded edge and make a straight cut like this and curve the rough edge at the side. Unfold the felt piece and you get yourself a cute heart shape at the end. I'll show you another one so you can practice with me. Draw a circular shape on the fabric and then carefully cut around it. Fold the circle in half and make a small curved cut at one of the folded edges. Then move to the other folded edge and make a cut from the bottom to the side and curve it at the end. Practice a few times and I'm sure you'll get a hold of it. I'm planning to use 2 red hearts and 2 pink hearts for this project, and you can use up some of your felt scraps by adding more hearts to this design. As you now know how to cut a simple heart shape out of a circle, you can add different styles to this project, like using different sizes of circles to get different sizes of hearts. For my embroidery hoop size, it comfortably fits about 4 heart shapes. Now let's move to the designing and embroidery steps. Take your embroidery hoop and the square shape pattern piece. Our design is a vase with heart shapes and this pattern is for the vase. Place it towards the bottom part of the hoop and draw around it using a fabric marker. Also, don't place it very bottom of the hoop, otherwise it'll get harder to stitch with the hoop interfering. I'm using all 6 strands of embroidery floss throughout this project and you can change it as you like. Now thread your needle and make a knot at the end. We are going to fill the vase using the satin stitch, moving one end to the other. If you don't know how to do the satin stitch, please make sure to check out our tutorial before this. I'll leave the link in the description. Basically, satin stitch is a bunch of straight stitches arranged closer to each other in a similar way. Here you make stitches from top side to bottom side continuously till you fill the entire space. You can also divide the whole thing into smaller partitions first and then embroider one partition at a time. Now if you have noticed me struggling to pull the needle, that's because of the denim fabric. Although denim is a type of cotton, it is more on the thicker side and it makes things a little harder for me while pulling. I might need a little energy after this project, but I can't resist the color of the denim fabric brought into this design. This denim fabric is from an old piece of clothing and I encourage you to repurpose or use something you already have. When you reach the end of the filling, turn over to the wrong side and make a couple of knots using some of the threads nearby. Don't make it too tight, then it might mess the threads at the front. Finally, trim the thread. This is how it looks and I'm also gonna add a few French knots here and there on top of the already embroidered vase. Now to stand out, I have thread my needle with red colored embroidery thread and make a knot at the end. French knot is one of my favorite stitches and make sure to check out the tutorial for that if you are interested. What you basically do here is you pull the needle from the back of the fabric and then twist the thread around the needle about 2 to 3 times. Totally depend on you. Then go back down in or near the same spot you came through. Now to form this knot, you must give a little tension to the thread by holding it from your other hand while pulling the needle down. You can let it go at the end. After you have embroidered enough French knots, turn over to the wrong side and make a couple of knots as we did earlier. Trim the thread. Turn over to the right side and now it's time to arrange the hearts on the design. Place all 4 hearts in a way that flowers appear in a vase. I think this is okay, and then mark the pointy ends of each heart using a fabric marker. This is to draw lines from the vase to each heart. Now get your ruler and draw those 4 lines to show the stems. After completing that, thread your needle with the thread color of your choice and make a knot at the end. I'm using white color thread and it's for both stems and the hearts. Now start to embroider these lines for the stems using the back stitch, and we also have a tutorial for that in the channel as well. I have started with my left side and move along to the right one by one. Backstitch along the stem till you reach its end. Once you are at the end, place the heart shape on top of the fabric by connecting it to the stem. Now sew the heart to the fabric using the simple running stitch. Sew all around the heart shape and closer to the margin of it. This project is a simple one to follow, and I think what makes it special is the selection of colors. You can do the same with pastel colors for the Easter, perhaps use egg shapes instead of hearts. This could also work as a Christmas gift or as a tree hanging ornament. At this point, we are done with our first stem and heart, and now let's move to the next one. Remember, it's running stitch for the heart and the back stitch for the stem. It's the same steps for all 4. If you are using different colors for the stems and the hearts, you might need to change the thread colors accordingly. I'm using red and pink colored hearts interchangeably. In case you are interested in more Valentine's Day crafts, you can also check the one I did last year. It was a simple embroidery design for my jacket. Now that I think of it, that was also a denim jacket. Denim is the one thing that never goes out of style, and these light blue ones are my favorite. As now we came to the last one of the hearts, I feel like it doesn't seem okay with that much angled. So what I'm going to do is place it overlapping with the third one and then use the running stitch to sew as we did with all the others. Planning the design ahead is what we almost always do, but things change along the way and just don't worry about it. After all, that's the beauty and specialty of handcrafting. Honestly, I think these overlapping hearts looks even better than my original arrangement. Now with this final heart sewed to the fabric, we are at the end of our project. There are only a few finishing steps after this. As always, end the stitching by making a couple of knots at the back of the hoop. Trim the thread. To hang this as a hoop part, we need to do something about this extra fabric hanging around. Now turn over to the wrong side of the hoop and I'm using the simple running stitch to finish the back of this hoop. Thread your needle with a longer thread and starting from the outside of the fabric, start doing the running stitch around this remaining fabric circle. We have a detailed video on this and make sure to follow that to get more clear step-by-step instructions. Leave a bit of thread hanging at the beginning to tie a knot at the end. When you reach the end, make sure your needle is on the same side as the beginning. Then draw the both strings towards you and you can see the fabric shrinks into a more finishing look. Trim the thread by leaving extra thread to tie the knot. Now use the two ends of the thread to make a couple of strong knots and you can finally trim the thread. At this point, our simple hoop part is ready. You can hang the hoop at the space between the screw or you can use the twine for hanging. I'm using this jute twine. I think it'll bring a little cottage vibe to our hoop part. You can add a little bow at the top as well. With that, Valentine's Day crafts come to an end for the year. There will be more for the coming year and let me know how your projects turned out. Thank you for watching and I'll join you in the next one.